So good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining this session of Coach's Corner. We're very delighted to have uh, Venkat here. Venkat is retired as an executive director of the bus business in Ashok Leland in 2017, and then served as an advisor to the MD of Ashok Leyland for product launches, mergers, and international brands, and so on. He has served on the board of almost 8 companies. He has rich experience of over 40 years, both in India as well as abroad. Having been certified in 2017 as a leadership and business coach, he has coached multiple people at very senior levels and functional leaders in different industries like automotive, HR, retail, and so on, and startup as well. So that's the area of interest that we have today. He's an alumni of IIT Madras and REC Kurukshetra. He is also certified in emotional intelligence assessments and coaching. He has done it based on the Ruben Baron method of emotional intelligence. He, apart from various other things, he is currently the vice president of the Chennai chapter of CFI. He is also on the advisory council of National Institute of Technical Teachers Training and Research, a member of Skill Development Committee of Delhi Management, an ombudsman in Ashok Leyland, chairman of the Ashok Leyland Educational Trust. He's married and has got a couple of and it's got twins. The son is in the US with a multinational bank, and the daughter is in Australia. He's two younger. He's got 2 granddaughters, and he's currently in Chennai with his wife. He's also published various papers in both international and Indian publications, and an avid movie and music buff and a voracious reader. I hope I've done justice to your profile, Venkat.
Thank you, Aditya. You've been very generous.
Thank you, Venkat. Thank you for being here with us and giving your time to us.
Thank you so much.
Could you please walk us through with your career?
Okay, so a large part of what you have already kind of brought out, I've largely been in the automotive space, and while I come from a family of educationists, I tried my hand in teaching with Niti Pawai for about 4 years, and somewhere along the line, I got a feeling that possibly education, is not as noble a profession as I thought it was from the outside in. And having kind of observed that, I said, probably I can, learn more, do a lot more justice in the industry. And I got out into the industry domain. So education, automotive, these have been my 2 kind of mainstay passion. And like most of us, we try to find the niche where and what we are comfortable with. The one thing that I tried to do, and the reason I'm sharing this is because, we kind of lead a life and then we come back and say, this is my second innings, and hence I will kind of look for, doing something else with my life, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I set as a goal for myself was that my children, when they touched 13, we were outside India. I was in the Middle East and US. So when they touched 13, I will be back in India. So that was very clear in my mind, which I did. Second, I wanted to have a sensible work-life balance, which meant, of course, I will do justice to the role and the jobs that I do, but at the same time, kind of not losing sight of the bigger picture with respect to life. And now being on the coaching side of this assignment, I find a lot of people still grappling with this. So that part of it went reasonably well for me. And I settled in Chennai. My parents, were in Chennai, and till they were alive, I could kind of, take good care of them and be there for them. So thereafter, I consolidated everything, one single house, and focusing on whatever I'm doing, balancing Australia and US. So comfortable from that perspective. Okay. So that's the backdrop of my journey. The reason that I continue to stay engaged with education was it still continues to be something that interests me. Mm-hmm. So I realize, faculty members in most institutions, they all play a cassette, ek tayari ki hai, and they come and kind of improvise and improve on that cassette as they go along. And, there is a need to change this and leverage and get them to become more topical and more relevant. So that is how I got onto the advisory council of NITR. And while it's a kind of challenge of sorts, because while it was established and there was an intent, and Mr. Abdul Kalam was at the helm of affairs at one point of time, today this body is searching for its identity. So we're trying to leverage a little bit on that. Mm-hmm. And the other side of the fence is related to working with children. I realize that a large part of what we grapple with is actually sitting way back in our childhood. And so somewhere along there, if those aspects can be, focused on, hopefully, something better will emerge. So that's the, gamut where I kind of am in now.
Okay. That's great. It's a pretty interesting journey that you've had both in India and abroad, and the fact that you've started working with the education industry, education sector, and started building on it. It's the way you've done it is pretty interesting. So thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
So at this moment, I would launch a poll. I would want everybody to kind of answer this question before we get on to our next question. Can everybody see the poll?
Yes.
I thought I might show everybody my face as well, because I saw everybody, but I was just hiding behind that veil.
Thank you, sir.
Hi to everybody. Yeah.
All right. So I've got responses for that one. In fact, everybody thinks that startups can benefit from coaching. So that leads me to the next question, Venkat, that I have for you. I want you to talk to us about the work that you did with the startups and share some of your experiences on how they've benefited from it.
Okay. So to walk you through that part of it, I want to dwell a little bit on, the startup space and, what I realized. Okay. So my last, role was as executive director of the bus business. Okay. And I was looking after, among, other plants, one particular company in UK called Optare. And Optare, supplies 100% of the buses for Transport for London, TfL. And we had got into the, space for making these electric buses. And one of my passion was that before I retire, somehow in India, I should launch an electric bus. Okay. And to that extent, obviously, you need to work with the government. You need to kind of make things, leverage things and all. Luckily, the government also was at that point of time looking at this, and the FAME project had been launched, faster adaptability, mission, and they wanted this to happen. And I became their poster boy for the bus, because nobody else had a bus, and I had to import one from England and bring it here. And if you see any of the media stuff that happened from 2015 till the last year, the electric bus that was always showcased was the one that we had brought in from Optare. But having said that, I realized that there was a dearth of understanding and knowledge about the electric vehicle or the electric vehicle technology per se. And it meant that, imagine Ashok Leyland as a company on one side, we were already trying to leverage the change in the brand perception that we are a conservative fuddy-duddy company, versus working with youngsters in the EV space who were talking about setting up charging stations, leveraging batteries, common technologies, battery management system, two-wheelers, swap batteries. So many things were happening. At the same time, we in Ashok Leyland did not want to put our eggs in one basket. So we did three things. One, we were building the technology in-house. And in 2016, we launched the first electric bus in India called Circuit. But the challenge in an electric bus is the batteries are expensive and they take a large amount of space. So if you have more batteries, you will have less passengers. So the cost per seat changes. So we wanted to beat that, and hence there were two other technologies we were looking at: how we can do a swap of batteries, and whether there is a method by which we can do fast charge, in which case the number of batteries in the vehicle can be brought down. The reason I'm sharing this with you was I came across during this period a whole host of youngsters, okay, who had a lot of ideas, and they were let's say the recency factor was far better than most of us within Ashok Leyland. So there was a huge need to change the mind space for me to kind of engage with them and start inviting them to participate and be partners in our progress, or joint progress. So it was a very interesting learning that here are people who are working in a space where they are eager, they are passionate, they want to deliver, but the takers on the other side of the fence are skeptical. So that was the environment in which I was in, and this led to conversations with various people. I started finding out what keeps them going, why is it they are doing what they are doing, and that kind of stuff. Subsequently, about 3 years ago, as part of the chapter conversations, we had brought in some people in the startup space who had done very well. Especially, this was a company which was running, like a child creche, educational child creche. They have about 17 centers all over India. There was another company which was in the space of, leveraging organic, vegetables and fruits. And there were a group of venture capitalists and angel investors that we had brought on board. And the whole idea was to find out the challenges that are being faced. Is there a space for potential coaches, and what is the way forward? Okay. So that's how I kind of got into this space. I am right now working with, I've done an assignment with a specific target for 2 startups, and they are now in the 3rd series of funding. And 2 startups who are right now leveraging their early part of the pitch. One is in the esports domain, and the other is trying to leverage fiber-based, fuel tanks. So right now, this oxygen cylinder being what it is, we are trying to see whether they can get into that space because it is lighter, easier, safer, etc., etc. So that's the kind of work I'm doing today.
Okay. So I think one of the key takeaways that I had from your response at this point in time is we should never ever let go of our ability to learn from others that are there in the market, be it youngsters or elders to us or whoever it is, and use that to help change ourselves to the better and take us to the next level. I think that's a great learning.
For sure. And since many of us are aspiring to be coaches or already coaches, I'm sure we all agree that every assignment is learning. It's rich in interaction. It's rich in segmenting certain thoughts and leveraging it further. So you're absolutely right, Aditya. I totally agree with you.
Thank you, Venkat. So before we go on to before we open it up to the audience for asking questions, I would like to launch another poll. Okay, and this is where 1 second, and this has got about 2 questions. Okay. And I want you all to kind of respond to these 2 questions before we open it up to the audience for the questions. Are you all able to see the questions? Can you please respond to these questions? The poll that is there on your screen.
Yeah, just looking through that, Aditya.
Okay.
All are tempting.
Yeah, Shubranil.
It is a great thing. Actually, you have actually integrated this poll along with your talk. I am impressed by it. And certainly it was great actually hearing Mr. Venkat. Although I tried my level best while he was talking to find him on LinkedIn, I was unable to. So Venkatji, it is a request. Yes. Please share your LinkedIn. I don't know what name it goes by.
It goes by Venkataraman. So anyway, we'll kind of get together. I'll try and reach out to you also. Yeah. So that shouldn't be a problem at all. Eager to kind of engage. There's absolutely no pressure and no problem. It's my pleasure.
All right. I will end the poll now. Okay. So this is how the results have been, where the opinion about when you can engage a coach as a startup is quite diverse. It's kind of split across, and at the same time, what type of coach is suitable for a startup? Also, there's been a mixed response across these. So I would like to take a pause now and open it up to the audience for asking their questions.
Hi, Venkat. Venkat, this is Amit here.
Hi, Amit.
Venkat, I have actually, after many years of corporate life, actually been a part of a healthcare startup now. Okay, and it's been my work for the last 30 years that I've been in various leadership positions. And so I actually doubled down as a, a kind of a business guy, strategy guy, and also as a coach to the CEO, who happens to be a 35-year-old guy, first time into
Right.
business and all of it. So now, there are actually, when you are coaching a person, kind of a CEO who's come into the first time and first business kind of a situation, and when you start to scale up, obviously there are times when you need to raise some funds from wherever and whichever sources. And so there is a kind of a trade-off between letting go of control and seeking outside funds to scale up the business. So, and that's and the CEO is also cut up in the two situations. He doesn't want to let go of control, and so why should I do it? And at the same time, the person wants to grow. So how do you actually deal with a situation from wearing a hat of a coach?
Yeah, actually, you've asked 3 or 4 different questions there. The good part of what you've said is here you've already got somebody who's looking up to you as a coach. So the first challenge, which I will just park it here separately, we will dwell on it if you guys choose to, is the fact that in India, while we kind of our poll showed people look for coaches in startups. Unfortunately, the percentage of startups which actually have coaches on board at any point of time in their path is in the lower single digits.
True.
Okay, so that's a very unfortunate positioning. And if you compare and contrast this with what's happening in the US or Europe, the numbers there are in the upper 70s. So there's a world of opportunity here. There's the first part. So I'm just parking that. But let's take the other question that you brought on board. Let's be clear about the fact that very few startups will initiate their own funding and go all the way and leverage and become a very successful company on their own funding. It kind of doesn't work that way, because moment it becomes that kind of a scenario, many of the potential employees and the team players start seeing their leader as I don't just to give the flavor of what I'm saying, I'm trying to use this word, a lala company. Okay, not relevant in today's, but that is the perception. The whole idea of startup is about leveraging an idea and bringing people together who are passionate about that idea and making that happen, right? And taking it further from there. So when they kind of need to look at a potential investment or bring investors in, the challenge for any founder or the owner of the company is to say, how do I trade off? Because anybody who is putting in the money, they're going to ask for a timeline, a track. They want to see their long-term ideas. And whoever puts in the money, let's be clear, the numbers are skewed heavily in favor of the investors. They will recover 3 times the investment in a span of 5 to 7 years. And usually a startup takes 5 years to actually gather roots and start showing results. Okay, so that's why this particular CEO is apprehensive. But he actually does not have a choice because if he wants to grow big, this is something that he will have to do. He has to bring investors on board. He can scale up the company better and faster. Does that answer your question, Amit?
Yeah, I just want, Venkat, I wanted to know, I mean, if you were to coach this guy, I mean, from a classical coaching perspective, what is it that you actually, kind of talk about to this person to enable him to find a sense of bigger purpose that he's doing? And obviously then he would require, and that gets him to think that, okay, if he needs to scale up, he needs to let go of something or to get something. So that is something that I would like to know from your perspective.
So, every coaching assignment, at the core of that assignment is an agenda. Okay. Yeah. So let's hypothesize here that he sought you out. Okay. And if he sought you out, he must have spelled out his expectation from your engagement, right? Yeah. This is one part, and there is a definition of what that expectation is. But as a coach, for you, it is important to ask yourself the following questions. This particular coachee of yours, why is he in the startup space? How passionate is he about his idea? What are his long-term motives? Does he want to get somebody to come in and buy his company out? Is he aspiring to be a unicorn? Is he passionate about the idea and he wants to see it all the way? Is he comfortable with taking the risk? Does he have staying power? Is he okay to live on small income for 5 years? How does he engage with the team? Does he see himself as part of the team, or he sees himself as one layer above? So these are all characteristics which will tell that ये आदमी आगे चल के successful उस startup में होगा कि नहीं. Because this is not a hierarchy driven environment. A startup is a very nebulous entity which you have to evolve your responsibilities, challenges, transparencies, many things simultaneously. It's not structured like we do in a corporate world, right? Yep. So and the model that most of the people have to refer is unfortunately that model, a Peter Drucker or that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, the startup guides are very, very young. Very few people have written eloquently in the startup space. Okay, if you're interested, you can look at a book by Maynard Webb of who was the eBay CEO, and a guy called I think Daniel Fiskin, or who started a company called Moz in the early space. I'm talking about in the 2000s. Okay, so there is no clear methodology. So आपका entire approach is to have conversations to understand him better. If you understand him better, then you need to engage with him consistently to answer his questions from the perspective of why is he asking those questions? See, as a coach, our job is not to give a solution. Our job is to improve potential and leverage the person's motivation, make him accountable, that kind of stuff, isn't it? So, which is why it's very important to ask कि भाई coach किस type का होना चाहिए, क्या करता है coach? Yeah, that's what is important. So you need to ask questions so that you can arrive at what is it that he's looking for. Based on what you just said, I couldn't pick up those 3-4 points that he might have spoken to you about.
Right. Okay. Venkat, thanks. I think that's quite a perspective.
I mean, the more we engage, the more these thoughts will emerge. See, the point is no easy answer, boss. I'm also about 9 startups into it, so we're all learning and engaging together.
Yeah. I think Sandeep has got a question.
Sure. Sandeep.
Yeah, it is actually more of what I actually want to say. Yeah. Aditya, you introduced me to this group, and I wanted to share something. Had it been some other day, I would not have been, so conducive to hear anybody. But this is the book that actually I'm currently reading.
Campbell.
And about Bill Campbell. And I think it is an amazing book. And actually, I really found out the difference between a mentor and a coach. A mentor is one who guides, but the coach is one who handholds. So this is what actually, this book has actually changed a lot what I am today within the last 5-7 days. So
We lost your audio there, Sandeep.
We lost your audio, Sandeep. We're not able to hear you.
oh, I'm sorry. Is it audible now?
Now better,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I think this is a great time whereby I am actually open and to coaching and a lot of stuff which probably otherwise a week earlier I would not have been open to. So it is not a question, but it is just a
Thank you.
Yeah. So if I can extend, thanks for sharing that, Sandeep. And it's one of the best books that have ever been written on coaching. And if I can kind of, for those who have not read the book and those who aspire to take this forward, 3 or 4 very specific pointers out of that book. Number one, all the coaching which this gentleman did with the Warren Buffets and the Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, etc., etc., largely they were chatting across on a walk. So it was an environment of, it's not a tu bada main chota, it's all about sharing and engaging with each other. The second part of this thing, every one of the coaches stated that Bill would not have a conversation with them till he set aside 4 or 5 questions for them before they started the coaching engagement. It was about family, what they're doing, what the children are doing, what this person is doing, etc., etc. And he would discern in that conversation the amount of pressure the individual had on his mind in the way he answered those routine, mundane questions. Okay, it's a very telling scenario because we talk to each other about how's your family, how are things and all, and the way the other person responds to it shows how much of engagement or where his mind is at that point of time. Okay, so this Bill said, and all the coaches said that this was a standard hallmark where he made people calm down and get grounded or rooted to the situation. Yeah. And the third was in the context that it was all about asking the person whether his team is aware of whatever question this fellow is talking. Is there transparency of purpose between the person and his team? So if somebody spoke about, my hard drive is, this was a Steve Gates issue. He had gone to Japan, chosen not to work with them on the hard drive, and then they had to kind of get on with it. So he asked questions around who else in the team, what's that happening out there, and so on and so forth. So his ability to discern the pain points by asking open-ended questions and pinning that down was what his quality was all about. Thanks, Sandeep, for sharing that. Sandeep has, I think, raised his hand again, or was...
No, I think his
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Any other question from the audience? Otherwise, I'll go with my set of questions.
Aditya, very simple question.
Sure.
We were just discussing, me and Shiv actually yesterday.
Okay.
Generally, what happens is the initial advisory or any advisory kind of thing from mentor and coach, generally we also tend to get carried away, and the other person also. So it happened with me also, because I run my other company called linkmindsolution.com, which is in the same space actually, is to mentor, adopt startups and help them grow. But what happens is that they come with saying that we have got an idea, we have a PPT and everything is fine. We just need your inputs and advice. That goes on for 3 hours. And then, which I realized actually after doing 3-4 sessions, that it's like free. And then they again come back and say that, okay, I've updated the PPT, can you review it again? So it goes on actually. So it's a very vicious circle that where we stop So eventually I stopped it because it doesn't help at all. So some inputs on that, how to manage that actually.
Right. So the second part of the question, on the two-part question that Aditya had put together, is about what is the kind of coach that actually engages in this startup space. Yeah. So you can be a coach, you can be a performance coach, you can be a business coach, you can be a expert coach, etc., etc. Now, what usually the startups are looking for is validation. And frankly, it's not the role of the coach to give the validation.
Correct.
That's not the task at all. It is the passion of the individual based on which he has emerged with an idea, and he has to have the confidence, the mindset, and the tenacity to hold that idea and see it through. Anybody who is still ambivalent about an idea will take a very, very long time to actually make a startup successful. This is one of the biggest lessons about the startup space. Unless the founders is so passionate about his idea, others will not engage, and he will never get a team together till there is that one common purpose. So what drives a startup essentially is the idea and consequently the resultant product. And only if they take these two things and they are ready with a pitch with an investor, okay, the investor is going to definitely ask all the subsequent questions thereafter. So this PPT that you spoke about, that's not going to help because they haven't actually yet leveraged that idea. They're still looking at, they are trying to use you as a expert coach or a person who is like a consultant stroke mentor in a particular domain. So one has to be cautious about what that role is.
Yeah.
Okay. Having said that, it is possible for an experienced individual who has industry experience in a particular domain and is also a coach and is also a life coach to actually leverage all these things and add value to the individual at that point of time.
Correct.
But it is important that you ask those questions incisively and give the person time to think it out and come. So my answer to you is, don't get into the process of trying to avoid the process of validation, because that is not coaching. It is consultancy, or it's it's a different domain.
Yep. And what I've also seen, just to add to what Venkat has said, what I've also seen is that a lot of coaches, probably with their background experience and all that stuff, may tend to walk into this trap pretty easily. And one has to be very cognizant of the fact that you have to kind of step back and give that outside-in perspective. The moment you step into it, you won't be able to give that perspective. So that's more for the coaches to kind of watch out for these traps.
Yeah, absolutely. You can leverage the exercise. See, assignments are not easy to come by. Okay, so when an assignment comes, we are also eager to engage and make sense out of it, right?
Yeah.
So it's always good to spell it out in a very meaningful way, so that the founder finds some value in it, and then you define the role in such a way that there is a win-win for both. Thanks,
Michael. Thank you. I'll just take a pause to introduce us to the next week's speaker for a minute or so. And then we'll come back and continue our conversation.
Sure.
Give me a moment and I'll share the screen with you all. So next week we have Priya Ramesh. Okay, Priya Ramesh is also a certified MCC coach, and she is also a EIA certified senior practitioner from the EMCC. She has over 20 years of experience as a coach, and she's a mentor coach. So this is more for coaches in terms of they can understand what mentor coach is, what is the path, what are the opportunities that are there in it, and how does one go about it. What kind of skill sets does it add to coaches being a mentor coach, and so on and so forth. So hopefully expecting that most of you would be there for next week's session. All right. Coming back to this, any other questions from the audience?
Yes, Aditya, you didn't take any number or contact address or email. How are the coaches going to reach out to us, or how are we are going to reach out to the coaches?
Okay, I'll connect
So
with you.
I think when you take a poll, you should take the number and the name there, and so that you have the data also, like who all are actually attending. That's just a suggestion. I mean, it is up to you. Sorry.
So, Sandeep, the thing is, I have created this as an experiential learning platform where doing business is not the intent, but coaches learning from one another is the intent. And
Oh, okay.
if anybody wants to know more or anything, they either about the speaker or about me, I'm on LinkedIn. You can always reach out to me, and I would be more than happy to help.
That's very kind of you.
Thank you. All right. So we will just take one more question because starting last week, what we have done, Venkat, is I have started inviting the coaches to give their to talk about their practical challenges. There's a Google Doc where they would put that, and from that I would pick up one question. And along with the panel guests that we have this week, it is you. I've got an expert coach here as well, King Shuk, and myself. Between the three of us, we will try to answer that question so that it would help the coach eventually.
Great idea.
Thank you. So before we get into that, any other questions from the audience, or can I?
I am not a coach. I am Dr. A.N. Parameshwaran. I am a director from Mangalore, Karnataka.
Okay.
I'm not a coach by profession.
Okay.
But I am coaching daily in my life, in my professional life and the family life, without knowing what is coaching.
Okay.
My students, also with my family members. So, a very basic question. Coach, and this terminology become very famous into Indian system for the past at least for me, for the past 6 to 7 years, about a decade. Slowly people start knowing this. Two specific questions: how it can be leveraged to the higher education, because that is a domain which is not much touched by the coach. This is one. And another one, there is a lot of confusion between a coach and a mentor. And specifically, because both the words are interused at a different place, at a different space, because it is very critical to understand the specific approach of coach and the specific approach of mentor. If any more clarification in this is highly useful to the people like me who is in the higher education sector. Thank you very much.
So, Dr. Parameshwaran, thanks a lot for that particular question. And a few days ago, when Aditya and I were, talking about this was one of the domains that we touched upon. The challenge, let's say, one of the challenges I face as a coach is I'm assigned or tasked by, let me give an example, let's say Tata Steel, to prepare their head of R&D who's a director position for a more senior board position. Okay. And there's a very specific task in terms of behavioral change and, you know, other things. Now, the first question which would happen when after the chemistry meeting and the initial engagements are all over, is the person will ask me, I am close to 55, 57. I've done something based on which I have come where I have come. So tell me, what is it that you are going to add value to me today, because of which it will make a difference to me? And this aspect goes back to the very point that you raised. All of us, especially those who are in education and coaching, will realize that we are what we are largely because of the belief systems or the observations that we make in the early part of our lives. And this belief system and those observations kind of make us, if I can use jargon here, create what is called a life role assumption for ourselves. And incidentally, those who want to know more about this, IIM Ahmedabad has done a lot of work on this. Dr. Pulin Garg, Indrani Pari, where basically they say that once you cast a life role assumption for yourself, you behave in your life based from that mindset or that set of glasses. So your point is absolutely right that in the educational system, if we can make the students get a better understanding of themselves at an earlier stage, then many things that they might realize much later in their job or career path, they can actually engage better or choose a path based on their own personality, strengths, and behavioral quotients. So I totally agree with you that this should be leveraged. I am actually working with the Delhi Management Association on how we can bring this into the educational policy. The new educational policy actually talks about 5 core aspects of self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, emotional understanding, 5 qualities that the teachers must have. This ultimately is aimed at what? Better handling of students. But frankly, if we can leverage this at the student level, by and large, when they are getting into college or when they're leaving college for jobs, we can actually make people a more rounded personality. So I totally agree that it makes sense to add value to that.
Yeah. And just to add to what you've said, Venkat, in fact, I've seen quite a few universities also waking up to it, because I'm working with one of the universities who have gotten me as one of their coaches to coach some of their postgraduate students. And when they approached me, I was really happy to see that work in that direction is happening. So that's a fantastic thing, and kudos to you, Dr. Parmeshwaran, that you are thinking on those lines in terms of making the change early on, rather than let the stem grow stronger before we try to mend it. So, thank you.
Now, the second part of the question, which is a very typical question, which will be one of the evergreen questions in this domain all the time. To be giving you a very simple answer, a large part of the coaching community and the client community use these terms largely interchangeable. Okay. Having said that, there is still a need to understand the difference. A coach works with respect to developing potential by using a person's, enhancing a person's productivity, knowledge, imagination, understanding, etc. So it's about building potential, making a person realize that he has it in himself. A mentor tries to actually add value to a skill which is not there in the individual or a coachee, and tries to show a result linked to that by demonstrating the end result. So this is the larger part of the difference, but to a very large both mentors and coaches kind of interchange this cap during their engagement with a coachee very regularly. The reason for this is most coaches come with experience. They have been there, done that. So when a coachee is grappling with something, it's very tempting to say or offer an option, even though it's not part of the coaching task or agenda. So I don't know whether it has answered your question, but that's where it lies. Yes, I can give you a jargon-based reply, but you can see that in the books yourself.
Thank you very much. Because this is very critical when we are bringing a concept to the higher education. If you are not positioned that fundamentals correctly, it will lead to a wrong direction. That's the reason I raised this question, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Couldn't agree with you more, Professor. Couldn't agree with you more.
Great, great. So we're at the top of the hour. We would be taking one of the questions that I received from one of the coaches during last week, where we would discuss about how to break that challenge for that particular coach. Those of you who don't have any pressing assignments and would like to stay on, feel free to stay on. Otherwise, I would leave it open to you all. So Kingshuk, I would like you also to be on this one, where we would talk about this question. So the person who has requested the response to this question chose to be anonymous, did not want the name to be disclosed. So this person is having a challenge with one of his clients, where the client has come to him and she says that I don't have a goal. I don't know where my goal should be, and I'm struggling to find a goal for myself. So help me with this. Is what the client has said. And as a coach, I think he had 1 or 2 sessions, is what he said, and he's unable to break that and help the coach coachee to find the purpose. So what are your take on this?
Mr. Ganguly, would you like to take this first?
I think, sir, you should take a shot. I'll just board the running bus, I guess.
Okay, welcome. So my take on this is it's a little surprising that a person has engaged a coach without an objective. I mean, uske dimag mein something must have been there. She's probably unable to articulate it. So the problem is more about articulating and discerning the priority for the person is what I would say the task is. The method to be deployed is to get into more open-ended questions. These have to be around what makes the person more alive, more engaged. What are they passionate about? Where do they see themselves so many years from now? What is it that they want to do with their lives? Those kind of questions. And the more these questions are put, the person reveals themselves and a pattern starts forming in terms of which domain is a little more closer to the heart. Whether it is in the creative domain, whether it is in the delivery domain, whether it is in the money-making domain, whether it is giving back to society domain, etc., etc. People will suddenly talk with a lot of passion when there is something that they are excited about. So the task here for the coach is to pick up those 4 or 5 aspects and then see whether there is a link between them, and then use that as a conversation to say, does this make sense? Mr. Ganguly, would you?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So, yes, that has happened quite a bit with me. So I can totally empathize with that question from that anonymous coach. And I would do what Mr. Venkat mentioned, which is asking those questions. What is your aspiration? Uh, I also ask few additional questions, which is, and I got this from a video which I was listening to about some few weeks back. And the video says that as a child, what kind of nicknames did you get from your relatives? Okay. And that many times points to a potential in you. So, for example, someone who is an author, he used to get a nickname of storyteller, or in Hindi you say Gapodi. Gapodi is
Yes,
who can spin a yarn,
yarn out of anything. Yeah,
out of anything. Okay. So today he has written about 45 books, and he calls it a gift. So when someone asked him that, how did you get to this? He says that as a child I used to be called a Gapodi. So I could spin a story out of anything. But it took me a long journey to realize that no, I have that as a gift. So to this person who's asked this question, I might say I would also ask that who are the people in your life who are important for you, and what do they say about you? So it's like a journey with each relationship. So my mom says this about me. This is how my mom comes across to me. This is about my dad, sister, brother, whatever. Now, after about 10 conversations, 10 relationships, one might see a pattern emerging that these are my strong points, etc. And because we are talking of very close relationships, that pattern makes sense to that person after that conversation, saying that okay, this probably is a sweet spot for me. The other thing which I do is I ask them, have you gone through some instruments in the past?
Yes, absolutely.
And would you like to go through some instruments? So then I would do some random instruments with them, 2-3 instruments, and through the conversations, some nuggets or unpolished diamond surface, and they kind of latch onto it. So those are 2-3 things I might try.
Interesting.
Absolutely, well said. And these the difficulty, if I might add, for the usage of instruments is the coachee must have a open mind to understand that these are validated instruments, and he should not be spending time on rejecting the results rather than working with the results.
True.
The whole idea is conversation. This video is a brilliant idea because it gives an insight into what others see. It's a form of a 360, kind of rejoinder response. And then, of course, the instruments come in as another, domain by which you can actually form a reasonably good handle on, set of, does this make sense to you?
Yeah.
Does this gel with you? Does it make you tick? Type of stuff. Well said, sir.
That's true. Coachability is very important, So if the person is not coachable, then I would not take the first step at all. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you for reminding me.
One value addition with Dr. Ganguly, the same approach, because it may be useful also to you, I do not know. How specifically I coach, that started my career from SRM, Chennai, 35 years before. After students leave in the drawing session, engineering, I will go and look out in the drawing board on which is doing the machine drawing or civil drawing or engineering drawing. The drawing classes are about 3 to 4 hours. Some of the structural drawing class will be 8 hours. 8 hours he will not concentrate on the drawings. minimum half an hour to 1 hour, what is in his deeper heart, he will put it a drawing in the drawing board or write some poem. So after he left that room, I'll spend 1 hour to each drawing board and note it down what is the things he has written. About a month is enough for me. Then I have developed a, sir, I am not a coach. Please, I am not a coach. I am telling something crude. It's something you can give value addition and put me in that direction. And I have developed a path in that. What is in a deeper mind and where he is going towards and how I can approach him in teaching learning process. Whether I can do the direct teaching or I can do some experimental learning teaching or active learning teaching. I was quite successful in this approach in my whole journey as a teacher. Just I want to add the value addition on this, sir. Thank you.
That's a very creative way, actually.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
the input that you
And
get
I'll use the
is very
I'll use the
authentic.
yeah.
Sorry, what I
And
was
I'll
saying.
use the Shashi Kapoor dialogue.
Yeah.
I'll use the Shashi Kapoor dialogue from Diwar. You know, Dr. Parmeshwaran may not be a coach, as he's saying, but you know, it can only come from, could have only come from a teacher. You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so it's
Very true. Very
very
true.
intuitive, very grounded. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
someone who knows
Absolutely.
his stuff. Yeah, so it's a
In
learning for
addition
us.
to this, one of the things that I've also seen work in one of my coaching assignments, where I had a similar person, is I try to inquire on what their passions are and where they are at what stage are they with their passions, basically, in life. Try to dig deeper into what is their passion, what do they enjoy doing a lot, where are they at it, and inquire a bit more on that, because a lot of times this dissatisfaction stems from the fact that they are not able to, they like something and they're not able to do anything about it. So yeah, I mean,
if I might add, a
Yeah.
challenge there is many companies, when they assign a coach, right?
Yeah.
The coachee has no choice. It is a task assigned by the company. Okay. Now, many of them, for the questions that you just asked, many of them are unable to even find the right verbs, adjectives, or the qualifying terms to be able to say, "Mujhe apne bare mein kuch pata hai."
Yeah.
And that is where, Professor Mr. Ganguly had stated about the coachability of the person.
True.
And it takes a long time before you can actually go back to the company and say, no, iske saath dusre dhang se baat karna padega.
Yeah.
So it's very true. I wish it was as easy as a person who is able to quickly find out this makes me happy, this makes me tick, this is where I am. Then it's a good thing happening for sure.
Cool. All right. So we come to the end of this session. Thank you. I'm sorry, Akshay. I think you've just joined it.
Yeah.
But
Sorry,
so we usually have this for an hour. So thank you, Venkat, for joining. Thank you, Kingship, for your
It's a
insights.
pleasure. Pleasure.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all for the inputs.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you, Mr. Ganguly and Professor Parmeshwaran.